Hello everyone, this is Christine Wallace again, and today I'm going to show you how to make a very simple 15 petals rose, black rose. I hope you grab yourself a comfortable seat and going to watch it from the beginning to the end. So let's get started. And the first thing I want to show you is how I develop the colors which I'm going to apply to this black sugar paste. Yes, I'm working in sugar paste today since I didn't have any clay to work with in black. And to get that lovely, very deep velvety texture to your flower, you do really need a black background. And so I'm back working with sugar again. Hello, sugar. So you're now going to cut all the petals out, thin the edges, and then texture them using Veiner. All quite straightforward. And so I just want to quickly come back to why I chose the dots that I chose. These two colors simply, it seemed to me, went together really well. They seem to be both warm colors, but there were other colors in my initial palette that were as warm as these two, and they didn't go together well. So forget this warm cold colors and just choose the colors that work together well, that you like, and obviously try them out either on a little spare petal or perhaps at the very bottom discrete bit of your flower. And yeah, cold or warm colors, I don't really even know how to tell them apart very well, and I suspect that's a problem shared by many other sugar crafters. I mean, they could be so confusing. So anyway, here you kind of texture your petal, you roll it in, and this is, you just use your hands if you're just starting out and you don't have all the equipment. But alternatively, you could use this little rolling pin, or you could use something like a ball tool. I'll show you in a minute. And also, if you check out the video at the bottom in the description, it will show you how to make this little middle. I just didn't have the time to make a separate one for this video because I normally have few spare or old unused middles that are dried really well lying around. So here's your second petal. It's I wouldn't go and try to copy it really precisely. I just want you to get the idea of what I do with each of the three layers. And in all fairness, I think it looks quite nice when it looks disorganized and kind of asymmetrical to a point, this flower. But anyway, so these are my first three petals, and the fourth one goes on right now, and they're all staying quite put, attached to the middle, and the next layer is going to start kind of opening up, and you'll see in a minute. So here you're going to have a kind of a ombre effect for painting your petals, for dusting your petals rather, sorry. I've forgotten to switch on the camera straight away, but basically the idea here is to start off with a darker color on the range of your ombre here, and then kind of work the edges here with slightly lighter color, but don't touch the brightest on your range, simply because the brightest color should be kept to add final highlights at the end. You will see what I mean when I get to that stage. So here you come to your second layer. Make sure you dust your first layer first, so that all the colors are already nicely in place and you don't have to open up your layers to just add color. So one layer at a time you dust it, and then here, as you can see, because of the way you shape your petals of your second layer around the first layer, it's quite important that at least the bottom of the petals is quite fresh, so that they don't crack and kind of mold themselves around that shape. So as you can see here, each petal of your second and the third layer, while we're on the subject, is overlapping the petal before, so it's a bit like a fan. So if you had to fold it, you kind of should be able to without it clogging somewhere and glitching, so to speak. So yeah, they all overlap nicely like this. I forgot to leave it unglued, so I had to disattach it and then reattach it. And now I am not liking it how symmetrical my rose ended up looking, so I've decided to kind of play with it and make it asymmetrical. And as I've mentioned in my previous video, if you go on my Pinterest, there are quite a few boards, and if you go on this board here, I will pin all these flowers I'm using for this. To copy. Initially, I showed you a slide which I like the color of, and this red one that appeared on my Instagram story yesterday. That one was the shape that I wanted. So now I'm just trying to make this shape kind of more irregular, and it could be hit and miss, but obviously if you're trying to make more of an asymmetrical shape, then there is no mega specification, or at least no mega specification that other people would recognize and say, well, this doesn't actually look right. Yeah, roses could look quite casual. And here I am trying to dust the very middle and see if I like the effect of only leaving the kind of inside petals colored in and leaving the outside petals totally black. And I think that would be possible, especially if I chose to dust it with a black dust to make it really, really black. I think that would have been quite interesting. But I've decided to kind of go for a mild black rose and give it all a dust. And this one I'm preparing for the last layer, medium size again, and I'm going to have 5 cutouts, or 6 including the spare, and the bottom of each of these petals is kind of, the bottom part is thicker, because they would need to hold a shape and also hold this texture, this nice veining pattern. And obviously if you have slightly thicker a base, then the vein tends to come through better because it has something to grab onto, that veiner. So the rest of it is quite straightforward at this point. Your rose should be, sometimes I would do this dusting when it's fully dry. It doesn't have to be fully dry, but I do quite like to kind of dust it when it's on a dry side, because I find that it actually breaks off easier when it's leathery and wet, but it really depends which way you prefer. Now I've started off with a really soft, nice brush, and this flat brush is better because you could kind of get into all the little crevices, and then add your highlights, which is what you kept the brightest of your color up to now for. If you'd forgotten and used up bright highlight color on some other spaces of your flower, you might want to add a little bit of white to make your bright color perhaps a little bit lighter. And in general, just obviously follow your taste with all the highlights and lowlights, but also bear in mind that there are logical places for parts of a flower to be lighter. That's usually the space where the place where the most light gets in, so that's something to bear in mind. And I'm really sorry I couldn't include the foliage, the leaves of this rose in this video, because it just seemed to be going on and becoming a bit too long. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to spend a bit of time and do some kind of a universal rose foliage in my next video next week. And now I'm just going to show you how to add a few highlights at the end. Now at this point it's very tempting to overdo on those highlights. At least I'm the kind of person to overdo on these things like this. So less is more, in my opinion. In this case, I was debating with myself whether it was worth to just leave everything as it was, but I kind of had a hunch that it would be nice to add a bit of this particular color as I was laying out the palette. So yeah, I think it looks nice, and I think I'm gonna leave it at that. Well, what else? If you're new, thank you for staying as long as you have, and make sure you subscribe if you like this video. And in the description you guys would all find my toolbox with stuff I used for this particular video as well. And thank you to all my regular viewers and listeners. I love you all a lot. And I think I'm going to wrap it up for today. Next week I'm going to make a video on foliage for rose in both clay and sugar, or maybe just clay, I'm not sure. I don't have any sugar paste at the moment except for this black one. And yeah, wonderful. Have a lovely week. It's a late hour now and I'm gonna be off to sleep. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a lovely, lovely weekend.